This is a smoke break with Spaceman Jones, proudly sponsored by Earthy Now and Urban Combat Wrestling. All right, hello everybody. This is Spaceman Jones with a smoke break, and I'm in with a great guest today. We have Aisha Adams today, and she's going to talk to us about uh, her online infrastructure and the systems that she has created and been able to use herself and teach to other people, and how that process has kind of enriched her life, as long as getting her opinion about issues of the day. But as you all know, on the smoke break, we like to start things off with a little bit of mindfulness. So we're going to have a round of 10 breaths, and I invite and implore everybody who's listening in and joining in with us to join us in with this 10 breaths. It'll get us grounded and centered so that we can have our conversation from a real place. And we'll just count them off. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. All right. So now you have been been in the Asheville area for how long? And can you give the folks an introduction? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my name is Aisha Adams, and I am the blogger behind Nappy Thoughts. I am the producer of the Asheville View, and I'm the owner of Aisha Adams Media, where we are closing gaps in equity through the Entrepreneur Accelerator, and we are finalizing the Lenora Ryan Equity Diversity Institute.
Oh wow. So that sounds, you got a lot, you got your fingers in a lot of pots right now. How are you maintaining balance with having so much to do and also having a family as well?
Well, the first thing I want to do is answer the question how long I've been here. So I want to tell you that I came in 2011 as part of the Asheville City Schools District Equity Initiative. So I was recruited in Atlanta, and the school system really helped me integrate into the Asheville area with a host family. And I was brought here particularly to look at diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And so that's kind of how I came into focus and kind of got here. So shout out to Carol Ray and Asheville City Schools for their work.
Yeah, man, I definitely resonate with Asheville City Schools, seeing that I'm an Asheville native and I went to Asheville City Schools like my entire um, public school career. So I really want to ask you about in response to you being coming here and working with the school district. I want to ask you about some of the things that you saw as some of the inequities that you saw, or the inequality that you saw, as far as like with schools in different districts.
Yeah. So in teaching across the South, we know there's a lot of inequities. And I taught in Washington, D.C., I taught in Louisiana, I taught in Birmingham, and I taught in Asheville City Schools. And I taught for about 10 years. And what I saw at Asheville City Schools was both effort and also some things that were actually horrific. Like I saw like both sides. For
Mm-hmm.
me, whenever I work a job, before I leave that job, one of the things I want to do is make an impact. That's really important to me. And so one of the things that I was able to do with April Dockery and Carol Ray was really, we had a program called Read 180 in the school system, and I really wasn't satisfied with Read 180. I was able to take that to the powers that be and say, hey, they're doing this work in middle school, in high school, they need to be doing this kind of work. And I was able to design out curriculum. A lot of times on the first day of school, I would just ask my students, like, how many Black teachers have you had? And most of the time, I was the first Black teacher that they ever encountered, which put a lot more responsibility on me. But I appreciate it and welcome that responsibility because, I mean, it's a part of who I am, right? And so not seeing a lot of people that look like them, we saw that. My students, we would have journalism Fridays where I would actually pose an issue and they would actually go out into the school and research. So they were able to look firsthand at like inequitable suspensions for girls out of dress code. And they were able to look at that. In our first unit, the first thing I teach our students is about food. Well, the first thing I do is teach the Black Panther Party. You can't talk to teenagers and not teach the Black Panther Party. So first I teach the Black Panther Party, self-determination, knowledge of self, and then we go into food. And so the students were able to look at the quality of food that were coming from the lunchroom, reading their labels, and like advocating for better food. So those were kind of some of the things that me and my students did while I was a teacher. Definitely making sure that they had great books to read by people of color who represented them, and shout out to Asheville City Schools Foundation, because the entire time I was there, anytime I wanted to get a book and I applied for a grant, I was able to get that and bring in the type of material that my students would say, I'm stealing this book, I'm taking this book home with me. And that's how you know that you're really reaching students. And so I really enjoyed my time at Asheville City Schools, but I wanted to make a bigger impact.
Okay, so was that, you wanting to make a bigger impact, was that kind of the catalyst that made you like jump into the public world?
Well, I had a car accident. And that's when I started my online situation. So I broke my neck, my wrist, and my leg. Actually, my online situation started in the classroom. So let me back it up. So super crazy teacher, go to class one Monday. I think I got it all figured out. And I'm like, hey, y'all, this is what we're doing today. And they're like, what, girl? And I'm like, we are all going to get YouTube channels and we're all going to be rich. And if you can figure out how to get money from YouTube, like you can pass the state test. So they laughed and said, nah, girl, you're going to get your own YouTube channel. And one little girl said, oh, I'll do her hair. And the other little girl said, I'm going to handle your clothes because that's why that man won't marry you yet. And then one of the boys was like, I'll do the camera. And somebody's like, I'll read the contracts. And so in that particular class, I started my YouTube channel. And that year in summer school, it was the year that, what's the lady who does the cookie, Paula Dean? Remember she said those racist comments? So then my kids were like, you have to speak to Paula D. So I spoke to Paula D, and that was like the first time our video went viral. And we were like all just insanely crazy because the videos were like starting to get more traction. And so once I left the school system, I just continued with my channel that the students started with me. And that's actually how I got online. So it started off as a teacher assignment gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, they was like, we're not getting no YouTube channel. You getting
you getting one.
and so you had one of these events. You had another event. You talked about having a car accident and sustaining some serious injuries. And I've seen in my life where sometimes the most horrible events in my life have been the catalyst, whether immediately or years later, they were the catalyst for like a beautiful change or a beautiful understanding. So if you want to speak a little bit about that.
Definitely, that was the best day of my freaking life. Like, let me tell y'all, in that moment, my boyfriend was like, oh, I'm marrying her. Like, that's it. This is done deal. My mom took off work. Her and my sister came to live with me in my home here, and I got to spend that real quality time as an adult with my mom and my sister, which was really, really, really powerful. And it just really made me unafraid and unapologetic about my mission, vision, and values. Because
hold on for 1 second, you got a problem with your mic. Something's muffling with your mic. Okay.
How about now?
Yeah, you're great now. You're great now.
Beautiful.
All right.
So for me, it was like it also gave me the confidence to be unapologetic in my mission, vision, and values because apparently the universe still wants me here, and that the work that I have to do is so important that my life was spared. Because
Yeah.
people really don't survive breaking their neck.
No, they don't, and that's a beautiful way. I'm a big proponent of that you can frame and create your own world if you choose your perception. It's all,
Right.
it's all in how you look at it, and I love the way that you framed it. That you what you had to do was so special that the universe saved your life.
I will tell you about the universe right now. So
Oh, that's such a powerful way of looking at anything. It's a really empower. It gives just even me saying it and thinking about how you must have felt. Just even me saying it was like I can feel a little bit of air under me. Like it made me sit up a little bit straighter. You,
yeah.
it brings a certain dignity. Thank you for sharing that with
I
us.
mean, it's an amazing experience to be co-creating with the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that ultimate love and power and knowledge of self and centering and mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm only able to move the way the universe is allowing it to flow and being mindful of like how that works. And so for me, that day was hands down, and anybody who's talked to me, they know I'm like hands down best day of my life.
Mhm. Okay, so in dealing with coming back from that injury and kind of digging more into expressing yourself online, what was some of the things that you discovered about yourself in that process?
So I don't necessarily think it was a part for me. I don't think that the accident was about discovering myself. I pretty much knew who I was because I was teaching kids how to get to know themselves.
Mhm.
But what I was doing was forcing myself into that capacity
Okay.
because I come from, I actually went to A.H. Parker High School, which is one of the first black schools in the South. Like slaves used to sneak to night school to learn to read. So education is really ingrained in the spine of who I am.
Okay.
My mom went to that school, my grandmother, my father, most of the people in my family. Um, and so for me, I guess like having that ingrained in me and having ingrained in me that I needed to give back to my community before this online thing, like how did you get back to your community? You were a teacher, you were a pastor, you were like, and I didn't realize that I had the power to do more. So when I came off the accident, have always wanted to be a writer. So you see me doing all these things. It was all just to get a book deal. Let me be clear. So I'm doing all of these things and I started a blog. And literally, I remember going to my husband, like, oh, only 25 people read today. Like, I just wish it was 30 people and like just beg, like really like not feeling heard, not feeling seen. But because of the work that I did in my hometown previously, an activist called me and was like, hey, everybody loves your blog. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, like 3,000 people looking at the blog. Nobody loves this blog. But he was like, no, everybody loves your blog and we need you to use your voice for the movement. And here's a story, and here's a story, and here's a story. And so I started going into community and talking to people who were experiencing social injustices. And that became sort of my platform or my specialty. So I wrote about a young girl who was in the car with some guys. They were taking a smoke break.
Yeah.
And the police pulled up behind and she already had shoplifting charges. So she jumped out of the car and she was mutilated by the police. And so she was on ABC and NBC. But the thing was that I owned my own platform and I could show the pictures. And
Yeah.
she had to have reconstructive surgery on her genitals and her private areas. So, like, the ABC didn't want to show that. But for our movement, it's important that we show that. She wanted those pictures. She wanted y'all to see what that police dog did to her. Um, and so in publishing that, I did that story. And of course, I'm always working on Janice's story of my heart.
Mhm.
A woman who shot a bullet in the air on a no knock warrant because she didn't know if it was somebody coming to kill her, and she got 33 and a half years.
Yeah.
So I'm always working on that story. So like publishing that story and like just continuing to push the envelope and talk about what is justice
Yeah.
and what is equity through my blog. And so report a few months after Sandra Bland died, we had a girl hanging from a jail cell in Birmingham, Kendra Chapman, and writing that story and writing why we thought police did it. Like, hey, I'm from Birmingham, and here's why I, don't believe the police, and like really sharing that dialogue. And it got really scary for a minute because I was writing about cases that weren't closed yet. And there were two things I've always wanted to be: a writer and a lawyer. And I feel like I'm a lot of things and not a lawyer and not really a writer.
Yeah,
But when I work on those cases and when I do that work, it feels really good. And sometimes, like, I know at one point I thought about stopping. And it was like around my birthday, I was like, this isn't really getting anywhere. And the little girl who was mutilated by the police, her mom was like, it's your birthday. You're an angel. You helped heal my daughter. And I'll forever, and like, that was the moment where I knew, like, oh, I have to keep doing this work.
That's kind of, I do another podcast for my wrestling company. And that's a question that we always ask the guys: was there ever a time, like, in your life where you didn't think that you had the strength to keep going, and something in professional wrestling brought you out of it? And I can kind of see that, like, it was those little times where people would kind of give you a glimpse on what your work was actually affecting in the community at the right pertinent times when you were maybe flagging. You might have been tired or doubtful of whether it was going on, and somebody will come in like an angel and give you that boost to help you keep on going. And I think that is also speaking to the testament of you believing so heavily that the universe is weighted in your favor. And a lot of the times I think that people really don't understand the magic of our belief systems. That's where the power is really in. And I'm really impressed by the way you've been able to use your belief systems to affect, like, major change, not only in your life, but then being able to, like, saying, well, the universe is taking care of this, so you done kind of hooked it to this, like a big sail, and the wind is blowing behind you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I want to ask you about how you are feeling about, or how you've been able to use your platform to kind of highlight some of the things that's been going on over the past few weeks and months in America.
Yeah. So being deeply rooted in community with leaders like you, it's really not, I'm not from here. So I had to look at what can I use my platform to do? How can I not overstep the community and lift my voice at the same time? So I started talking to my white friends. So I did a video. The first one was how to show Black Lives Matter without posting it, because I just got tired of seeing white people posting Black Lives Matter, and I needed something more. So I gave them a 5-step, 5 tips on how to do that. And then from there, I was just getting a lot of messages, and I'm sure you were too, just about like, how are you? And a whole bunch of
And
whole bunch of white people were emailing me, like, telling me how much they hate racism, and I'm like, y'all just now coming to the conclusion how much y'all hate racism.
Well, the way I feel about it, I used to have these conversations. Like, I work downtown in restaurants a lot, been cooking and for a long time, and I have these conversations while we're working. And we talk about how bad things are and how, most of the white guys like, I know I see it all the time, it's bullshit, blah blah blah, but then I tell them now to start stopping those racist conversations. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this is what I tell them. I love you so much. Thank you for getting in touch with me. Now go tell your racist husband how much you hate racism.
Yes.
Go tell your boss. Tell your children.
Yes.
Teach the people around you how much you hate racism. And so I really took to that platform. And I'll have to say, like, my white friends have stood up in the gap for me. And shared my message, amplified my voice, donated to the organizations that I've called out, and it's been a beautiful sense of community. And so I just used my platform to fill a gap. What I was seeing from our community was this need to be amongst ourselves, this need to get our movement sort of organized and to get things in place. And so I saw that that was a gap, was to kind of get my white friends information, as Beyonce would say.
Yeah, I see. I was talking about this to a guy. You see a lot of times, a lot of our black leaders will start to make comparisons with the Jewish community, with the Chinese community, with, these different communities. And I think that what the black community, kind of why we're not in the same situation as those other communities, is that we don't have a homeland of people that support us.
Mhm.
A whole nother country of people so we can't be as insular. We can't.
Yeah,
We are Americans. Like, I know we're Americans, right? So
I love that you say that.
it's gonna take white folks to help fix this problem. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
we got a greater. It's not like we can. It's not like the Chinese folks that can, pick up the phone and call over to wherever they from over there and talk to auntie or uncle or cousin. We can't do that. All of our people are right here. And it's going to take all of us to get out of this. We're
I'm
American.
so glad you brought that up, because did you see the picture from the Democrats with the Ghanaian, with the
Oh,
kente cloth?
God, what? I don't, who is writing this stuff? Or do they
Who
have,
is? I was like, what in the Wakanda? What in the Wakanda is this?
who
And
is,
it's like dividing us, right? Because I'm trying to tell people Juneteenth is an American holiday. I am an American. And so my neighbors, especially in Asheville, who don't even know us, are like, oh, well, let me look up Ghanaian culture. So now we both gonna be looking crazy because neither one of us know the culture like that.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
not my culture. My culture is American. I hate baseball. I don't deal with the police. I pay my due energy bill when I, like
We
I'm American.
we are Americans. We are Americans, and I think that it's a lot of people sitting around trying to find ways to amplify their voice, and you got a lot of people that's using unscrupulous ways. You got a lot of BS out there that's parading as truth. You got to really, really search these days to find out what's real and what's not. And me myself, I am an American. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I don't understand why, but I do understand why a lot of people like want to draw those comparisons. Usually the people that are drawing those comparisons usually got an organization or something. They got something to sell. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to get people behind some kind of banner, some kind of cause, some kind of
Well,
push.
I think that and I always tell people, especially because I'm really refining my voice to speak to the majority, is that yeah, like we are a lost tribe. Our ants, we're not dissing our roots, but my father was in the Marine Corps. My grandmother was born here. I was born here. My father was born here. My husband's father was born here. My son, like we are American. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and if you done the DNA, you can see like 4 generations back, 5 generations back, like the Bristol people was here. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? No matter where we came from before that, like all of our experiences shaped and molded in the fabric of America. We was here. We saw
we
it.
built
We,
this.
yeah, we built it. Why are we trying to separate ourselves off from the heritage of what we built? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's because we have an exotification culture, right? Like it's not really in season to be like regular black. Like I can be cool if I'm like mixed with something, but just to be a regular black girl, only people I ever really seen lift up a real black girl just from America was what, Dead Prez. Like I haven't seen people just be like, oh, it's okay just being black American. So we're always trying to exotify it, make it more cool, make it more than what it is. But as Black Americans, we control the culture of the world.
Yeah.
Not Black African, but Black Americans. We control the culture. How we wear our hair, we set the trends.
That's right. And I think that because we didn't have other types of structures in the culture. Like we didn't have a political structure. We didn't have the big economic structure or the military structure. So we created what we could create, and that was in the other parts of the culture, which is food, clothing, entertainment. You see what I'm saying? So we were able to create in that realm because we always been people of the heart. You see what I'm saying? Like we feel,
Exactly.
we laugh, we feel deep, we love. So we create all of these things that are about just look at a Black American culture. How much of it is centered in comfort
And in laughter.
and laughter. Comfort and laughter. Even in the most sorrowful times, somebody gonna find a joke.
Let me ask you, what's your favorite song right now?
My
Because mine is "You About to Lose Your Job." Have you seen that song?
Oh, I haven't seen that
Oh
song.
gosh, I have to send it to you.
Yeah,
This woman, a Black woman, getting arrested, and she goes, First she told the officer, "Get this dance," because she had a dance to go with her song.
yeah,
And then she saw saying, "You about to lose your job because you detaining me for nothing."
yeah.
And it is the video is so cool because you got Elmo dancing, you got Beyonce dancing, and everybody's dancing because the officer is about to lose his job.
Yeah.
And with everything going on, it's just a good break from everything. It's humorous. Even the officer was laughing.
Yeah. So yeah, I gotta check that out. I gotta check that out. I don't know. I've been working on a lot of music lately, so that kind of I listen to the radio a lot when I'm creating music. I
Yeah.
don't want any other stuff to get into my style, so I don't know. I just been listening to the radio pretty mindlessly.
And this is like the internet. So this is like, because I'm very much into internet culture. So somebody took her singing and they made a remix. They put a beat behind it. They made a video. And I think everybody just loves the song. But
Okay.
that's what we do,
That-
right? We
yes,
take
that
lemons
is-
and we make lemonade every single day. It's a part of our culture.
Yes, and I think that is a part of our culture because we had to deal with like the scraps historically, you know.
I think we've always been people of magic. Like
Yeah,
I think when I read about like the fall of Segul or like when Africa was a Pangea, like before the Muslims came and before the Christians came, and
yeah,
we delved in our own religion, we've always been magical.
yeah.
Always.
Well, we've
And
always
so for me, it's like, no, like, because I'm gonna tell y'all, people always talk about like what about slavery. But I'm gonna tell y'all this. Y'all tell me that the trauma from slavery is in my DNA, but I cannot grow food. Now, my people, that should be in my DNA too. So I'm not buying any of that because I spent hundreds of dollars in my garden to not be able to grow stuff well. So
I
if
can't
I,
either. I can't.
right. So if that's not locked in my DNA, why would I believe the trauma's locked in my DNA?
Yeah.
You know? Because so I know what's locked in my DNA is the magic of my ancestors. And I know that we are a people we don't just make do, we make better. And so
Yeah.
I feel like that's how they've like programmed us to believe like, oh, we better take the scraps. No, we take what you don't see the magic in and we put the magic there. We make things better. Anytime I've seen something that we've done, it's always for the
Your
betterment.
microphone is doing that thing.
It's my hair. I need to. There we go.
All right. All right, there we go.
Yeah, we make things better. We're magical.
I am I'm a proponent of magic in all of its forms. You know, that's something that I kind of study on a daily basis is how you can affect change with your will and you know just what's inside of you. You can kind of concentrate and you can change things in the outer world because it's kind of working together. You know, what's within is the same as what's without. So we kind of change the way that we think and feel. And I think that what the work that a lot of folks are doing to try to change the way that mainstream Americans feel about race, I think that work is very, very important because if we don't change it, then we're going to see more of what we've been seeing over the past months, and it's going to get like more intense because people are not going to continue to stay under, you know.
Right.
You see it in every society. I mean, you look at Roman society, the people who were slaves and disenfranchised politically and economically, they eventually joined up with people who also lived that same way, and kind of the empire fell. You know what I'm saying? I think that right now we're seeing the first rumblings and beginnings of like a definite change in the power structure in America. For
It
sure.
feels like a revolution.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
It feels like a revolution, and I'm excited. In talking to my white friends, I'm so glad to have them. I went on yesterday, and I was like, "Listen, the protests are over. The cool, slick selfie opportunities are gone. Now is the time for the real work. Like, do not get tired. Do not cease. Stay committed, because this is where the policies change, where the money starts to trickle down. And so we really need our allies now more than ever at
Start
those
speaking.
tables.
Yeah, we really need them to start speaking up, and we have to talk about. Okay, I am a person who, like when I grew up, I thought that being a gangster was the thing to be, and I set out my life with that goal in mind, and I reached that goal, and it was hollow, and I destroyed myself and my life, and I'm building it back up over time. But I think that the hopes and dreams, we have to find a way to make it possible. You see what I'm saying? We have to find a way to make it possible for guys who look like me and ladies who look like you, and even to my white brothers and sisters that are languishing in the trailer parks in rural America and being decimated by our opioid crisis that won't quit. You see,
Right. Because they use race to separate us, but this is really a social economic issue dressed up as race.
this is what I say. Racism is a tool in the con game, also known as white supremacy, is an economic con game.
Exactly.
Racism is a tool of that, because they don't care about the poor white boys neither. Look at how they living, and they trying to kill them off too.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So it comes a time to where the hoods and the trailer parks and the barrios and everybody who is poor has got to turn more into, and I'm gonna say a word that's gonna get me some heat, but proletariat, working people that actually make the goods, that actually are the grease that makes everything work together. The mass of people, we got more power than we previously thought, and now we're seeing that, and it'll never be the same again.
And I just hope we can continue on and fight, because we've gotten to, like, even with the coronavirus killing hundreds of thousands of people, people are like, I'm tired of seeing that. So our attention span is super short.
Yes.
you know. And so I worry about how our movement will go because people's attention spans are short. So
Well,
we have to continue with new words, new ideas, new understandings to keep people engaged in the movement, because this is a whole movement, and movement takes years and even decades sometimes.
and I think that if we continue to keep everything that's going on visible, like don't stop pulling your phones out and recording. I hope that people are stopping some of this stuff, but don't stop amplifying the stuff that's happening.
Definitely.
Speak on it. Like, we can't let it fall back in the news cycle and let some stupid dance or movie take over the airwaves, when this needs to be the central view, the central
Piece of it. And
yeah.
if we continue to amplify Black voices, it will be, right? Because it's in our music, it's in our art, it's in everything that we do, because we've been living under this oppression for so long. It comes out naturally.
Yes. I think that from we both were I was cognizant. I would think I was 14 in 92, and I watched the riots, the LA riots. And it was kind of like, wow, you know what I'm saying? This crazy. And then, then OJ came, and then, all of these different things came, and then like everything kind of got quiet. You had stuff happening, but it wasn't like on the forefront of the news. I think that that with Obama becoming president, kind of opened a racial scab, it opened up a racial wound, that I think that a lot of mainstream white America had a lot of anxiety that chickens was about to come home to roost. But from what I'm seeing, Black folks ain't looking for revenge and never have in over almost 500 years of occupation. We ain't
Yeah.
looking for no.
That's the heart, right? Like that's the heart in us.
Yes.
For sure. And I think, it's interesting that Trump would be the president to bring this about. It's almost like we needed him to be in place to unite us
Yeah.
because that's when the uniting started. The day that he took to office, that's when we started to say, holy crap, what have we built here?
Yeah.
And I think that's when a lot of people started to see that there would need to be a change if we were going to continue as a, sovereign union.
Yes. Yes. I think that was the catalyst to kind of bring the sickness to a head, kind of like if you got a boil or something, some kind of infection
Yep.
in your body, and it come. But Trump was what made it come up to the skin, and now we actually seeing what was on the inside.
And now it's bursting out.
Yeah,
It's coming out.
yeah. We have to do something about it. We have to do something about it, or I have a true fear that we're gonna lose what has taken so long to build up in America, even though it's not perfect and it's messed up and it's evil most of the time. It's what we have. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like looking at your family. It's what you have, even though it's people that you don't agree with, and people who done hurt you and all of this. But I mean, it's family. I mean, ain't that? This is our country.
Exactly.
Where else are we gonna go?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We have to make this right. We've been a part of this for good
It's
and
kind
for
of like being in a relationship and just leaving all your stuff at the house instead of getting it and take it with you.
yeah,
When I was in my 20s, I did stupid stuff like that. Now I'm almost 40. I'm gonna need my land, baby. Give it. It's mine. I know how to fight for it now.
exactly. And we should fight for it, man. I think that that Black culture have made tremendous contributions to American society and world society. And I mean tremendously like valuable contributions.
Yeah, I mean, look at Ben Carson, and he ain't even our top pick.
Yeah.
But look at what he contributes.
Yes. And not only that, just and well that and also thought and sentiment. The image of wisdom, the image of the wisdom of America is an old Black woman, America.
Yeah.
You just think about that. When you think of American wisdom, what's the archetype? It's an old Black woman in a shed somewhere way back in the woods. Look at the Matrix. I mean, look at the Matrix, which is basically American mythology. You know what I'm saying? The Oracle was a Black woman, an older Black woman. You see?
I mean, exactly. And if America is to develop a conscience, it will be a Black woman.
It will be a Black woman, most definitely. It will most definitely. I think most definitely, and I think that we haven't really came to grips with how we have misused the symbolism that we naturally have in our society, and how we haven't like elevated people to the place that they deserve to be in our society out of, I'm scared if I give up my place, I'm not gonna have no place no more.
Mm-hmm. And that's not our fault though, right? Because we were groomed to be like, oh, it's gonna be one Terry McMillan. It can only be one, And so I feel like we, in American society, for the longest time, it was only room for one. You're gonna be one. You're gonna be Mr. T or whatever other wrestler you are. Like you ain't gonna have no name. You're gonna be.
Yeah, and there was actually a racism lawsuit brought up in professional wrestling, and they asked one of the bookers, and he said, "Well, if I had one Black guy, and I didn't need no. I already got a Black guy. Why I need
exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been that way in every industry. If you go and look, you could be Nia Long on TV in the 90s and everybody else was just like a supporting character.
Yes.
And so I mean, what does that do to a family?
Right? It destroys the trust. It destroys the fact, like, I got to know that you with me. And the way that you portray me, let me know. See, art is like, all of these movies and these songs and these television shows, all of this is the inner speakings. It's the soul put on display. And okay, let's look at American media. What's the
Let's do
soul
it.
on display? What's the
Yeah.
soul that's on display of America?
Yeah. Which is why I started the Asheville View, right? Because I was like, we need marginalized voices to be raised.
Yeah.
It's why I went and I was like, Johnny, I need you to tell your story. He was like, girl, I don't want to say. I was like, Johnny, we gotta get it. We gotta get it documented. We gotta get this down, and the only person who can tell it is you. There's an African proverb that says, as long as as long as the hunter is telling a story, of course the lion will never win. So the hunter has always been telling our story.
Exactly.
And particularly here in Asheville and all the other places I named. So interesting. This was the first time that I like the first piece that I wrote that I felt like really got some views here was I went to the Charlotte uprising.
Hmm.
So I went to the Charlotte uprising to protest and to be a part of that movement. And all I saw from Asheville were like white reporters, right? And I'm like, does Black voices matter in Asheville? Like, you can't have a white person tell the story of a movement because
Yeah.
they don't even understand the different nuances of it. And even in our protests here, I asked, like, okay, who were the Black reporters? And there were none. They sent white people. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, do you want to tell the story or a story? And so I feel that that's something that keeps coming up. And that's why I dedicate so much money, so much time to the Asheville View
Yeah.
because I want people to understand that queer people have a story, that
Yeah.
trans people have a story, that Black people have a story, and our stories are way more flavorful, more fun,
Yeah.
and more interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's one reason that me and my business partner Marcus Mook Cunningham, shout out to Mook the BTSG, my boy.
Hey, Mook.
Hey, yeah, me and Mook, man, we were training and learning about the wrestling business down at the School of Morton, and we saw that the wrestling business was like devoid of like all of the black guys are like, they hardly ever win, and you know what I'm saying? It's like we're not valued. So that's why we created Urban Combat Wrestling, was to be able to tell the stories. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be able to tell our stories. I grew up and I watched wrestling, and all the black dudes always lost. Like, damn, can't never win. When it's important that they never win. All right, guys, we are we had a little bit of technical difficulties. They were moving a house in my neighborhood, and I forgot they were gonna turn the power off. So they turned the power off for a few minutes, but we're back with Aisha Adams, so we can continue with this great conversation. Um, um, I don't really remember what we were talking about before, but that's okay. You
So
know,
much to talk about, right?
there's so much to talk about. We can continue now. I really want to talk about your show, The Asheville View. And I want you to tell the people why they should be watching The Asheville View, and what your concept was behind it, and like just go ahead and sell it to me.
Yeah, so the Asheville View was basically so my husband works at WLOS. Like you got to know that every good business starts with a husband and wife sort of situation.
Yeah.
So my husband works at the news, and I always joke him and say, "Oh, y'all aren't doing any real news over there. Y'all just playing." I didn't watch the news before I met him, but being in love, you try things, and so I
Yeah.
started watching the news, and I was like, "This is the most boring." News I've ever seen. So I was like, I want news that reflects my community and the issues that are important to me. And then I started looking at how many other communities have been locked out of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I decided that my news would be about Black and Brown communities, the LGBTQ community, and mainstream issues from our viewpoint.
Yes.
So it was really important for me to look at what was not said. So when the incident happened with Johnny Rush, I actually wrote an op-ed. I didn't know him at all. I wrote an op-ed for the newspaper because I was so distraught about everything that happened. Um, then just following the cases, following the stories, and realizing like we haven't heard from him. He's never said anything. So it's been, 2 years. He hasn't said anything. So, I'm like, we need to have him say something. We need to hear from him. And then I'm like, has the mayor ever been interviewed by a gay person or a Black person? that needs to happen. And so then we
Yeah.
interviewed the mayor. And then it was like looking at what needs to happen to A, have us be seen as American, going back to our previous conversation, but B, also that includes our voice. And so the Asheville View has quietly been sort of making its appeal to community and picking up issues that are really important. The last issue that we covered, which was really important, is how our essential firemen aren't getting paid $15 an hour, which is a really important issue.
Very.
And so we were able to tackle that and bring that in front of community and let them actually give a call to action to their community. So we're here to be a voice for marginalized voices. We're here to be the conscious of the media. And I really feel like that's what we're doing. We're bringing back that. In my research, we always think that the media is supposed to be unbiased. And what I learned was that that's a marketing tool, that media has always been biased,
Always. 100.
always been biased. And so my media is biased towards Black, Brown, LGBTQ people. And we are raising those voices. We are declaring our own standard of beauty. We are doing all the things that make us magic. And on top of that, people are really receiving it and really respecting it. And the brand has just grown from there.
They tapping in with you, so to speak. I know that for us, that was a driving reason behind creating Urban Combat Wrestling, was that we wanted to have a voice that was and tell stories from our perspective, and kind of be able to pay homage to the things that we liked. Representation, and that's one of Mook's favorite sayings, man. Shout out to Mook again. Is representation is everything. It's everything. It's everything. It's everything. It's how people see you, how people receive what you're trying to put out there. And I think
And how you learn to see yourself.
yes, exactly. So we're going through. I think that right now we're going through a revolution of sorts, maybe a political revolution where things will be a little bit more equal or completely equal, I hope. But we're also going through a revolution. I've never seen so many street guys at a protest in my life until I was out until I was out seeing what was going on over
But isn't that culture too? I mean, the Black Panther Party, they
yeah.
were, yeah, that's culture, right? And
And you're seeing leaders being created like right in front of your eyes. And I think that it's a powerful time. Is even though that it is a painful time, I think that it's a powerful time, and I think that being able to tell our own story is going to be instrumental in kind of righting the wrongs. That's what we, like you said. The protest doesn't happen. Now it's time for the real work. So what are the infrastructure that we're going to be able to build, especially like in Asheville, because we're supposed to think globally, act locally, right? So
mm-hmm.
I see a network, of Black people, young Black people. When I say young, I mean like under 60. Young Black people who are kind of creating their own lane and really making a voice for themselves and for the people around. And I just hope that more of us step up to take on that mantle, because Lord knows we've been in an echo chamber for 1,000 years, so bad that even when I see young Black men, I get a little bit of anxiety. Just being honest.
Well, you know what Malcolm X said. You keep watching the news long enough, you'll love love who you supposed to hate, right?
Yep.
Um, so I had to write that down. Think global, act local is really powerful, and that's exactly where we should be. So I wrote that down, and I really appreciate that, Jewel, because it's super important.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that in local elections, um, Black people have an extremely powerful voice that is suppressed, that falls victim to apathy, that also falls victim to misinformation and kind of a fatalistic kind of thought about things, that nothing will never change. It don't matter who you vote
So
for. I felt that way.
here's a cool fact. The Asheville View, we were a sponsor at the debate. So we went to the debates. I actually co-hosted the debate for the Mountain Biz Works City Council debate. It was supposed to be before everything got shut down. And at the end of it, I had my team go interview city council members one to one. Every city council member who did not interview with us did not make that round. They didn't make it to the next round of city council.
So that's powerful.
And only one person who did, um, his interview was late. And I feel like that may have been the reason he didn't get his message amplified high enough. But now we're going back and we're doing long form interviews. So our first one was Kim Rooney, and she was interviewed by Tina. Um, so, like, we are going back now and we're trying to keep video in front of people of color so that they can learn more about the issues and the candidates in a deeper way. And so that's part of the work of the Asheville View, because I feel like when I've been at tables at media, like one of the things about Mountain BizWorks and I mean, not Mountain BizWorks, but Mountain Express, and shout out to them. I love their brand. I love who they are. I love partnering with them. But they're talking to yeah.
Oh man, I love Mountain Express.
I love Mountain Express.
So much love. Thank you, Mountain Express.
Yeah, but when they're talking about the politics, you have to come with a certain level of understanding. It's not a introduction to politics every time they're talking. And so I feel like what we do at the Asheville View is really introduce the politics so that you can continue your work through places like the Mountain Express or the regular newspaper, because you have to be introduced to certain ideologies and certain terms and certain processes before you can even go over there.
Yeah, I think that there has to be there's a language barrier even in English when you're dealing with like political lingo, legal lingo, economic lingo, and I think that that's a barrier that we can definitely work on that. And I'm glad that you took up that mantle to be able to say, hey, I'm going to educate some people through my through the vehicle that I have, my platform. And it's a powerful
and it's all of our platform. I want y'all to know I didn't start the Asheville View for me to be a star. Like, I have a brand that has 20,000 followers. I got my pictures and my star. Like, this is about building true community and really uplifting people who need to be uplifted when they need it.
True that. So we're about almost out of our time that we have to spend with each other. Is there anything that you want to kind of plug? Now it's time for shameless plug. Sell.
I can be shameless here. Yeah. So 2 things I want to talk about. The first thing is the Entrepreneur Accelerator, which is my social responsibility as a Black woman-owned business who is doing well. I want to share that knowledge. So I've invited some of my best mentors to come in and to do some free teaching. And if you're interested in that, it is going to be June 20th and 21st. It's online. It's free. And we're going to be talking about everything from business planning to grant writing to how to get an employee to how to do a contractor. And it goes on and on and on. Right now, there's over $100,000 in the community for Black and brown people that we haven't accessed. And come get that information.
Yeah, man, definitely. All of the entrepreneurs, and we will be and actually this episode has such pertinent information. We're going to expedite this episode. We're going to move it up in the queue like bing, 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 because of the pertinent information for entrepreneurs, and that we really want to shine a spotlight on Black and brown people who are doing their thing in the community.
And then I have one other shameless plug. This is so important to me. This is like my life's work. We are finalizing the details for the Lenora Ryan Diversity and Equity Institute, bringing in high quality teachers to come in and to teach how to identify, navigate, and dismantle white supremacy. And so to be partnered with the university, to be able to really go in and get that certificate that says I've done 30 hours of diversity, equity, and inclusivity training, and I'm actually ready to engage my community and activate is really powerful. And I invite all of you to check out the courses and the classes, and I hope to see you there.
Oh yeah, and if you can get me that information, I can put it right there on the screen, and we can get the people the information so that they can get it in real time and they can tap right in. Thank you very much for coming on. We look forward to seeing what you are going to be bringing to the world in the next coming months and years. And I appreciate you sharing your knowledge on
It's
the.
just so good to see you again. I feel like we met that one time and I'd seen you again. So I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, well, I've been spending a lot of time in East Tennessee learning the wrestling business. So I learned what I needed to learn. Now we rocking and rolling again. And thank you for coming on. And I appreciate everything that you're doing in the community. Everybody, this is Aisha Adams, and this is Spaceman Jones. And this has been a smoke break. And we're gonna get out of here. We see you guys next week, man. Peace.
Bye.
This has been a smoke break with Spaceman Jones, sponsored by Earthy Now and Urban Combat Wrestling. See you next week.